Hello, Pat. How's it going?
Hello, Matt.
Welcome back. You've been on tour, man. How was the tour?
Yeah, it's great to be back. The tour was great. We spanned Colorado through Idaho, Montana, up to the north, the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest is so beautiful. It's so verdant.
Oh my God.
I mean, all those places are beautiful in their own way, but it just for my own like sinus and skin situation, the Pacific Northwest really suits me. It's just like I am a creature that's living among other creatures and
It's so funny that you
plants.
bring up sinuses. Is that just
Yeah,
like a being in your 40s thing?
it might be, but for me, it's been all decades. But it's just when I'm in, I love all different regions, but when I'm in like the dry ones, like
Yeah.
you know the Rocky Mountain zone, various zones, the desert. It's rough for me.
Yeah.
It's a very dry time.
Sure. Yeah. It's a dry time. This podcast is not sponsored by anyone, but have you used any of the sort of neti rinses?
I've done some netting, and various saline sprays.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bigger one that's slightly too big to bring in your carry-on luggage, so you need to be checking a bag. But
We're big
know,
fans in this family of the Neil Med sinus rinse bottle. So,
Neil Med. I
yeah.
think I might actually have had some experience with that. I'm trying to do some visual recall, but so your whole family is a fan of
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
Well, the three of us.
sure,
My immediate family.
right.
So, that's so cool, and I feel like you get to see this country in a way that most people don't.
I feel very lucky about that. Yeah. Um, Sort of get to go bop into all these little ecosystems that are just humming along in parallel to our own ecosystems.
Yeah.
And it's you know, I think it's a nice balance of like us being rewarded by people saying nice things and like having a good time and people being rewarded. Like I think people have a great time when they
Yeah.
come. And it's just like a nice moment of stepping out of routine for them and for just trying to do the best of what we've been trying to do for a long time for us.
Yeah.
It's a nice coming together of those two things.
It's cool that you have a career where you intersect with other people in a moment of them, like, enjoying life,
Yeah.
listening to music, you know,
Yeah.
being with friends. There's a
Right.
lot of people, like, I mean, I'm just thinking about all the careers that intersect with people when they're stressed out.
Right. There's a lot. There's a lot of that.
There's a lot.
I mean, it's super usually pleasant in that way. At showtime, I should say, there's a lot of like garbage logistical nothingness that goes along between those.
Sure.
But yeah, you trade like stability and health insurance and retirement contributions for
Sure.
like, nice interactions with people. It's a pretty good trade.
Sure. Um, yeah, well, and I would describe myself. I've mostly worked with small businesses in my career.
Yeah.
And today on the show, we have somebody named Penny Finnie,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to be our guest. And Penny is an entrepreneur, and I think she has a really unique ability. I would say, to connect it to what you were just saying, like, I don't think Penny has had a feeling of stability in her career. She has always gone after things that have been sort of at the frontier of new things,
Yeah.
and built new things through the companies that she's created. And so I'm pretty excited to chat with her because I think, whether you're a musician or whether you're an entrepreneur building new things, like you're making a real choice to have some more vulnerability, less stability, to do something that can be pretty magical at times.
Yeah. I mean, just reading about her, she seems very impressive. She seems of the Renaissance. Would you say she's a Renaissance?
Yeah.
gal.
It's funny that you
R-
say that because she's also a painter. She's a very, very capable painter. So yeah, she's got a lot of different skills. And I think for me, she's been somebody who's really, without like sitting me down and being like, Matt, this is how you do entrepreneurship. Like just being like around her has been very inspiring for me and has kind of taught me about how to create businesses and how to like be part of that ecosystem. She is Heejin and I got to know Penny out in San Francisco. So you were talking about the Pacific Northwest, a little bit south of there, the Bay Area. Penny lived in Oakland for a long time, and is just a super creative and lovely human being. So I'm excited to have her on the show today. Yeah. So I guess with that, I think we should just dive right in.
Let's do it.
All right. All right. We're here with Penny. Awesome to have you on the show, Penny.
It's great to be here, Matt and Pat. um, yeah, it's really fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Cool. Can you introduce yourself for our listeners?
I'm Penny, and I live in Massachusetts, and I'm the CEO of a company called Egal, and we make period pads that are on a roll. And that's my current job. I've been doing that for the past 5 years, and I met Matt, I can't even, 15 years ago. He was an intern
Yeah.
of mine, and yeah. So back in the Bay Area.
Penny has had a pretty awesome career path, ranging from being an early employee at AskJeeves, which for maybe some younger listeners who might not know it, like is an early internet search technology, and really, yeah, one of the major ones. So we'll get into that a bit. Penny started a chocolate cafe in the Bay Area called Bittersweet Cafe, where I had the opportunity to intern and learn a bit from Penny about chocolate and about entrepreneurship. She also worked in the cannabis space at MariMed. Again, we worked together in the respiratory health space at Sensory Cloud during the COVID pandemic, and now is working on menstrual equity issues at Egal. And I know that you're also a mom, a wife. You've got a lot going on in your life. I guess specific to the professional work, like you've done a lot sort of at the frontier of creating new things. And I'm just wondering, I know this is sort of open-ended, but like any thoughts about that? Is that something that you seek out?
Now, it's funny. I realized that maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe a little longer. But I think, and then I started sort of wondering, well, what was that about? And I think, and when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a doctor because that was the only kind of, my father was a doctor, my grandfather was a doctor, all my parents' friends were doctors. So I was like, and I thought my father was a neurologist. So I thought, well, the brain is pretty fascinating. And, but I got to college and I realized I was spending all my time in the studio art classes. Like anytime I had any free time, that's where I was. And so I was like, well, maybe I should rethink this plan. But I think the being an artist piece of it is kind of and it's never conscious, but it's like, oh, it's that creating a new um genre or a new type, going into something new um that hasn't been done before. And then, sometimes I get down on myself like, oh God, you should be painting. That's what you went to school for, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, but no, building businesses is really creative too. So it's kind of that combination of things of like something that's never been done before, that creative act, and then building a business, which is a creative act. So that's where the startup piece comes into it, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm the least ambitious person I know. I mean, like when I
Really?
was in college, oh God. I mean, career, I was like, I don't, all I wanted to do was paint and teach, you know, and that was it. And so, you know, uh, even having children wasn't really on my radar. Yeah, it was just paint, you know, teach so I could paint, and that was it. Yeah.
Mm.
Teach
So
art?
teach art. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I figured I'd do. And I did do that for like 2 years, I think.
Was it your own, you know, it was just your own business? You were just or did you work at a school?
No,
Yeah.
so I taught at Georgetown Prep,
Oh.
which happens to be where Kavanaugh and Gorsuch went.
Oh, right, right.
So I was the only female teacher. Well, there were two female teachers in the entire school. One was 60 something. She was the English teacher, and I was 25.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
always getting in trouble for like I wore clothes to teach art in, and anyway. And then at the same time, I taught at a school called the Field School, which is in Washington D.C. Still exists as well, but it was the opposite of Georgetown Prep. It was this sort of, at the time it was at DuPont Circle, and very open-ended school. And then at night, I taught at George Mason University, and I taught a course called Visual Thinking there. And, that was interesting because at the time, George Mason was the fastest growing university in the country. And I think there was a lot of government funding going into it. And most of my students were Army brats,
Huh.
because, yeah. So
Is there something? So I saw you kind of shudder a little bit when we were using the word career. I'm wondering if like there's something deeper about like the choices that you've made professionally that's like it's not really about a career.
yeah, no, that's a really good point. It isn't about a career. It's about because I don't think I've ever made a decision like, oh, this is the smart thing to do for where I want to go. Because I don't know where I want to go. Still trying to figure that out. And I'm 66, almost 66, by the way. So yeah, so I don't know where I want to go, and it's more about what's interesting,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So I mean, is that sentence kind of the answer to how did you get from teaching art to working at Ask Jeeves? Or like, how did that?
When I was teaching art, we were living in Washington D.C. and Baltimore, but then I also started doing film work in Baltimore when our daughter was about a year and a half years old. I did wardrobe and that kind of thing for film.
Wow.
And so I was in the union, and I thought, oh, this is really fun. It's it's kind of episodic. Each day is different. You don't know what show you're working on, or what ad you're working on, or what movie you're working on. And so we moved to California during that,
Huh.
and I thought, oh, I'll just transfer my union membership. Not an option. I can't remember what the issues were in the union. So I thought, well, I could paint, but I knew one person in all of California. And I thought, well, if I start to paint, I'll still only know one person in all of California. So so my husband, this was 1990, he was a multimedia analyst, and nobody really knew what multimedia was at the time. I didn't. And It was the year that Photoshop, Illustrator, Macromedia Director, which you guys may or may not have heard of, an Avid digital editing. It was the year that all of those came out, because it was really the year that images became available on computers.
What
And
year was
so,
that?
1990.
1990.
1990, 1991. So I went to my husband's boss and I said, hey, if I take, because it was the Bay Area, if I take classes in Photoshop, then, I'll kind of tell Charlie, my husband, who's taking these classes and why they're taking these classes. Because nobody understood what Photoshop would be used for. Desktop publishing did not exist. So, and, all design, which I had done when we lived in New York, you use the straight edge and you use a wax machine and you printed things out, and it was all cut and wax, to do layouts. So I understood all of that piece. So I had enough background to understand what you're actually doing with these tools, but digitally. So they said, sure, take these classes. And I just became, and I'd really never touched a computer before that. I think when I was teaching, I used a word processor, you know, but that was, that was it. And so I brought, my husband had an Apple at the time, one of those boxes that had
Yeah, I remember those.
the giant floppy
We had
disk
one
thing.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he wasn't using it. So I brought it home and started playing around with it. And I, because of somebody he knew, Bill Gross went on to become a huge name in the internet space, but he was developing children's software called the company's name was Knowledge Adventure. So I went and I worked for Knowledge Adventure from the Bay Area. It was based in Los Angeles and developed Art Adventure for them.
Mhm.
And then Jumpstart Toddler. I mean, we really didn't have email, so I would go down there, you know, once every 3 weeks, and everything was kind of done on paper, and and then we had artists there that would design it. And at the time, TED was just starting, and it was invitation only. So you had to be invited to go to TED. And I think it was the second or third TED was in Kobe, Japan. It was the only time that they ever tried to do one outside of Monterey when Richard Saul Wurman ran it. And so Charlie was invited because he was a multimedia analyst. And I went with him. And I remember Jane Metcalf, who started
Mhm.
Wired magazine, was up on stage and she was talking about getting online. I remember writing in my little notebook, "Get online?" question mark, you know. And
How do I
How to
get
do
there?
that?
how do I do that? And I came home and got AOL and got my little 56K modem. Probably was slower than that, but and I remember coming back to Bill Gross and saying, "So what are we doing about the internet? How are we going to, you know, make these products connect to the internet?" And he looked at me like I had 5 heads. But I started going to Internet World in San Jose. And Internet World, I think, was in one room that probably held maybe 200 people. I mean, it was tiny.
Mhm.
Is that your term, internet world, or was that a thing?
No, it was a big show. It was
Oh.
well, at the time it was tiny, but it became a huge show.
Okay.
And I met Hank Duderstadt there.
What a name.
And I know Hank lived in Oakland, and he was a programmer. And so he had started the Berkeley Cyber Guild. And so we started meeting at the Berkeley Marriott down in their lobby because we just needed a place to get together. Of course, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no nothing. But anyway, we started teaching one another how to code do HTML
Mhm.
and what FTP was, and he would like bring me, here's the floppy disk for FTP, and you know, you know. Anyway, but I had started this little company in my house called Jack of All Trades, and we were doing interactive laser discs. That was one of the things I learned how to do, which was you know, the size of a record.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And because I did a class how to do an interactive laser disc and had started this program called Children of the Crane, about the bombing of Hiroshima. And so I'd been doing that, but then I had like 2 other people working with me, and we were doing stuff for Hartford, and you know, we started working for The Well. The Well was the first online community, I suppose, and it was based in Sausalito.
Hmm.
And we were the we were the web developers for The Well, I guess.
Penny,
And
I don't want
yeah,
to like make you lose your train of thought because this is like a fascinating story. But one like theme that I'm seeing already is like you've. It seems like you've put yourself in a place where you've just gotten a ton of opportunities through, you know, being curious, being open to new things, like is that like is that is that tiring for you at all, or is it just energizing to like go after one thing after the next?
A little bit of both. But I think at the time, when there's no pressure, I mean,
Yeah.
and I've often said this to my kids, it's like sometimes from the outside, you can see things more clearly than you can from the inside.
Hmm.
And so if you were a programmer and you're at internet world, it could have felt overwhelming because you're
Sure.
like, wait, is my whole world changing? How do I respond to this? That kind of thing. But for me, I was like, huh, this is new. And it
Yeah.
felt like magic to me.
The creativity that you brought in as a painter, as somebody who like, liked that sort of creative expression. It seems like you found that in lots of other places too, like in technology and in all these different companies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
also, I forget what word you used at the beginning. You said you were the least
Ambitious.
ambitious
Yeah.
person. I don't know. I mean, maybe if it seems like you were way ahead of the curve in many ways, and just at the forefront of a lot a lot of things, but also just of in like the old mid-century concept of a career was like you get your job and then 30 years later you get a watch, and
Hmm.
that is not what
Right.
you're doing in the first transition piece between being an art teacher and working at Ask Jeeves. You said like 15 things.
Right.
It's like you're
Yeah. Sorry. It's like, wah, wah, wah.
not,
No, no,
not
it's
not sorry,
awesome.
not sorry. I'm just
Yeah.
saying like it's I don't know if ambition is the right word or whatever, but it's just you're so uh yeah, you seem to have an indefatigable spirit or something about you that's just finding the place where you're eh, yeah, the combination of creativity and whatever whatever else can be applied.
Well, I mean, I really did think the internet was this kind of when I started looking at it and being like, I remember when we were at TED in Kobe, um, Quincy Jones was playing on the stage, and there was this amazing jazz musician in Tokyo, and they were doing a concert together. And everybody thought, "This is unbelievable." And because they could hear one another and we could see both of them. And
Mm,
now that just seems like, "What?" But but when you started seeing those kinds of things,
yeah.
it's like, "Wow, this could really change everything."
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started sending my first emails back and forth and being like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. It was like this is going to change the world. So there was an excitement there.
Yeah.
Um, and I then did start. I mean, I went to my husband's investment bank. We actually made a video about this. Went to my husband's investment bank and it was like, would you like a website? And they were like, why would we want a website? And then I think it was the Mill Valley Film Festival asked us to do a website, and they were going to be the first film festival in the world to have a website, and we
Mhm.
did that for them. Um, Stanford University, the business school, we got hired to do the business school website, and I've asked them later on. I was like, "What? Why did you hire us?" And they said, "Well, as far as we can tell, there's 25 web developers in the country, and you were the closest one to us."
Huh.
So it was early days, and so the Ask Jeeves, how that happened was I our the school had an auction, and I decided, well, I can auction off a website, and so I did.
Mm.
Nobody knew what one was, and so but there were two VCs that who had kids in the school, and they both bought the website. So I ended up doing their businesses' websites, the companies they'd invested in. And one of them, Garrett Gruner, called me one day and he said, "Have you ever designed a character?" And I said, this was 1995. I said, "No, but I am an artist." And I think the one thing I really enjoyed about doing websites at the time was try to make a website that doesn't look like an engineer did it, um, and well, that was hard when it was only text, because in the beginning websites were only
What
text,
does
and
that
then they
mean though,
had
Penny?
color.
Like, is that like more human or more like what do you mean when you say an engineer
Well,
didn't do it?
just oftentimes the colors they would use is like,
Mm.
you can't be serious that those are the colors you've chosen to put, or
You have
that that's
terrible
the font
taste.
that you chose. You have
Yeah, yeah.
terrible taste. Or is that the font, because in the beginning you couldn't even put pictures there. So it was just even,
Yeah.
or you really couldn't lay it out. But, so, um, yeah, so trying to make it maybe more human and just have a better design sense,
Yeah.
bottom line.
Got
And
it.
so he asked if I'd ever done a character, and I said, no, I haven't, but I'd love to try. And he said, well, I want to design this website. He said, the internet's, search is going to be a big thing. People, that's the only way people can find things online. And I would like to create a friendly means for people to do that, where people can actually ask questions, because people aren't going to understand the whole thing of doing, search words. And that's just, for most people, that's going to be, a problem. So he said, I'd like it to be a butler, and I'd like the butler to be named Jeeves, because that's kind of the most famous butler. And so because of PJ Woodhouse's
Are
books,
you a fan? I love those books.
I knew of them. I'd seen this. There was a show
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and so I was like, okay, it might be a little problematic, because I'd learned all of this in my, I don't know, whichever classes I'd taken. It was like, the licensing of Jeeves.
Public
But
domain.
I said, well, yeah, well, yes, but I said, let's make Jeeves be 55, 60. Let's make him be a little, because the real Jeeves in the books was 35. Let's make him a little paunchy, which the other one wasn't. Let's make him bald, which the other one was,
Totally
all those
different
kinds of
guy.
things.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
different
totally.
different Jeeves. Different
Yeah,
Jeeves.
yeah. So I did not draw Jeeves. I then went out to find, I was like, okay, this is what we need. I went out to find an artist to do it. And when artist after artist couldn't find anyone, I was beginning to think, well, I am going to have to draw Jeeves. And then one day a friend said, there's a guy named Marcos Sorensens. And Marcos has been doing, he does kind of cartoon characters, but they were more kind of Martian-y kind of things. He had just done a Swatch watch. And anyway, I emailed Marcos and told him what I wanted. And at the time, I was on AOL and he was on CompuServe or something like that. And the reality was, you couldn't send images between the two.
Crazy.
And so he faxed me the Jeeves. I still have that original fax. And it came out of the fax machine. I looked at it. I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I had in mind.
No
And
notes.
so no notes. Yeah, no notes. No, seriously, no notes.
Wow.
And that was 1995. AskJeeves didn't start until 1997. And I was hired at that point. And Marcos wasn't, and they've been trying to kind of copy. They like when they were doing the decks and everything to start the company, they tried to kind of copy. And Jeeves was just getting. It was. I have some T-shirts that they designed from, and I was like, nope, that's not it. But I started coding the main website, and yeah, worked. I can't remember my various roles. Ended up as the chief creative officer there, but we started with 4 of us. And this is how early it was. There was a Debbie Chen was there, and Debbie. So every day, for those who don't know, you would ask questions. You would say, what's the population of London or whatever, and we actually hired editors who. There was one person who focused on music, one person who focused on restaurants, one person who focused on movies, TV, etc. And they would, as the internet was growing, they would literally be finding all of these websites, and compile. And so we'd have a compile at the end of each day where we would take, take it all and put it into the search, engine and do a compile. But Debbie would then take the hard drive and put it in her backpack and ride her bike to our ISP. Because if we had tried to upload it, it would
Be
have
too
taken
much.
like a week. So every day the hard drive was taken, put in the backpack, and driven, up to the ISP.
It's so
to be
manual
uploaded.
and hands-on. It sort of like evokes like just like the internet was just a few tubes.
It totally
A few
was.
pneumatic tubes, like in a bank or something.
What
Well,
strikes me though is that it's from a user experience perspective, like the way you interact with like an AI agent, it's the same sort of thing, right? That you guys designed with Ask Jeeves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was an article in the Atlantic like a year ago, and it was like, was Ask Jeeves the first chat GPT?
Yeah.
And, and, I think it kind of was.
Yeah.
But, it was imperfect. I mean, we had all kinds of natural we had all these linguists that worked with us, and we, started to understand slang and all those kinds of things. And it would feed in and, try to decipher what people were saying and try to bring back the right answers. And then we always had a search engine beneath it.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna try to distill something right now, and I might completely miss the mark, but I'm gonna
Oh
try.
boy, let's go.
So, Penny, I think I was starting to get here with an earlier question that I asked. Like, you're at the birth of something huge, right? Like you're in the midst of something big, and it seems like
mhm,
you've done this many times. So there are all these different emotions that come up, I would imagine, in a moment like that. Like there's a curiosity, there's an energy, there's and you've already said like you're not like again, what was the word?
Ambitious?
ambitious.
Ambitious. You're not ambitious. For some reason I'm having some blindness to that. But um I'm wondering, like, there are other, like, having been involved in creating other things, other businesses myself, like, there are other emotions that crop up, like imposter syndrome, fatigue, comparison, like all these different things that are like not really constructive, right? They're not really
Mhm.
helpful when you're trying to do something new or put yourself in. Do you have those feelings, or do you just like? Is it just like you're just so driven by curiosity that you just hop in?
Well, one thing about doing something that nobody's ever done before is um, y- having imposter syndrome doesn't exist that much. And I did know, I mean, we would hire people from like Procter and Gamble and stuff, and all these big brand people, and I'd be
Yeah,
like, oh, they don't know very much, because they didn't. Nobody knew anything about the internet,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so. But there's also this thing, and I've thought about this a lot, which is like I brought in our CEO, Rob Rubel, and Rob had been, I think, the COO at Knowledge Adventure, that the company, the children's software company. And I would call him literally every day and say, Rob, you got to, this is it. You got to come be our CEO. And it was meant he was going to have to move his whole family from Los Angeles to Berkeley.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it never, and, of course he had a lot of anxiety about that, like I've got to uproot my family. I've got a pretty good job here. Why would
Yeah.
this internet thing, is this internet thing is real? You
Mm.
know, um, but, in my mind, it was like, this is going to happen. It's just going to happen. And there was it was oddly like no doubt in my mind that it was going to happen.
Yeah, but
Mm.
I've seen you have that confidence in other, and we're going to get into other ventures that you've worked
Hmm.
on. And so I think that it's a skill that you have, that like you're able to like see those things and have confidence. And I'm wondering, like, for people that are listening that are founders or entrepreneurs that are trying to create something new, like there's just like this natural curiosity and energy that you have that I think is really that leads, like, if because if you think about it, like the experience that you developed with Ask Jeeves, like it really isn't that different from what it's like to ask a question to an AI agent. So
Yeah.
like there's something like very intuitive and creative about what you did to create that, many years before OpenAI and all these, AI agents. And so I think that there's something powerful here that like I'd like to, maybe leave for other entrepreneurs. Like, would you encourage like entrepreneurs to like, kind of put their blinders up or try to like forget about their resume? Like, how can they tap into this curiosity and creativity? Is
Be
that a hard
born that
question?
way.
No, but I do think
Impossible question. Sorry.
here. No, but here's the thing, and this is I liken this back to painting. If you start a painting and you know what the painting is going to be,
Mhm.
it's going to suck as a painting.
Mm,
It really is.
mm,
It's going to have no life to it. It's going to have no energy. It's going to be dead on arrival.
mhm.
Um, and I learned that, in college and in graduate school. But if you go to the blank canvas and just go, let's see what happens here,
Yeah.
it's going to come into life in a different way. And I think, and this is going to get very woo woo, but I think there is this channeling that happens, and you have to kind of follow the the things that are offered to you, and
Yeah.
Mm,
and and not prejudge them. I think
mm,
Or
not kind of
yourself,
say,
right? Like
yeah,
prejudge them, prejudge yourself. There's this
ex-
openness.
exactly, exactly,
That's super
and
cool.
yeah, and not everything is going to be um a positive experience.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Um, but you're gonna, but it's gonna open some things
Yeah.
that are. I was on a podcast when I was talking about it a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago called "Live into Your Brilliance," and they asked for a quote, and I think my quote was something like, "We think we're in control, but we're not,"
Mhm.
which is that same kind of thing, which is the things that are happening are out of our control, but the way we respond to them is in our control,
mhm.
and so, but you're given these kind of amazing opportunities all the time. It's whether or not you see them or not,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Pat, I'm wondering, does that resonate from a music perspective with you? Like in terms of your
Oh yeah, I mean, I was hesitating to jump in and just relate everything to music, but yes, totally. It's like, I feel like it's not always a leap into the total unknown when you're songwriting or creating music. It's like finding the right balance of comfort and unknown. It's like
Hmm.
so people can follow the path with you. You're like, see, this is this, but now look at this. And it's
Exactly.
always
Yeah.
finding that bridge. Um,
No, it's like, and what it sounds like you're saying, Pat, is like when I used to do a painting. I haven't painted in a while, but you do one, it poses questions in a way. A painting may pose questions, and then so there's that continuity. The next one, you're sort of trying to answer those questions, but it poses more questions, and it's
Mhm.
there's that action and reaction, and
hmm,
and it sounds like maybe music
Yeah.
is that same thing.
Totally. I mean, it just seems like you have been able to, in a polydisciplinary way, apply these wisdoms to, other. I mean, should we get to some of the other many items on your
Yeah, yeah, we
your
should, we
resume
should.
here? I don't know.
Yeah. I guess I'm wondering like
The,
what I was actually gonna ask, so from a transition perspective, like what sparked you to think about leaving tech and going into building a chocolate cafe?
So
obviously.
that happened, right? Obviously, um, so startups oftentimes take a lot longer than you think to get them where you need to go. No other executives stuck around AskJeeves as long as I did. They kind of came and went and came and went and came and went. Um, but I was like, I got to get this to being profitable. That's and we hit profitability, and I think around 2002, and that was just the most insane. I mean, when we went public in '99, within 6 months the stock was at 108. Anyway, it went from 70. We were priced at $14. It it at the end of the day, it ended at 70. It opened at 77, I guess. It by the end of 3 months, it was at 185, and then at the end of that year, it was at 85 cents. So, I mean, can you imagine what that was like? So, a lot of people, it was like, but
Wild.
yes, I was like, let's get this thing to profitability. We did that when we added Google AdWords, I believe. Overnight, we became profitable. And but I was pretty exhausted at that time, and had been doing a lot of traveling because the UK version of Jeeves, we always had to keep, so I was going to the UK a lot, worked with Michael Ovitz, because he was Jeeves' agent. And so I'd go down to LA and hang out with him. We were trying to do Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was a big show at the time. We wanted to do a Jeeves show. So we were constantly talking to studios about that.
Wow.
Jeeves was the mascot, or not the mascot, sponsor of the Lakers. Anyway, there was all this stuff.
I remember that actually.
Yeah. Anyway, but so I was pretty exhausted, and we went to France with our kids for spring break, and we were in southern France in Saint-Remy, and we went into a chocolate shop that somebody had recommended. Joel Durant was his name, and I didn't like chocolate that much, and this guy made this amazing chocolate, really simple, not truffles or anything like that. But he had, he would put saffron in it, or he would say, like, this is from, Venezuelan chocolate versus, Madagascar chocolate, and all of that. And I was like, So I bought a bunch, but it was so kind of cozy and cute. And as we were leaving, I said, that seems like it would work well in Berkeley, don't you think? And
Yep.
of course the kids were like, yeah. And they were like, let's start a chocolate shop. And so I went back and I mentioned it to the friend who had recommended the place. And she said, oh, well, then you have to meet this guy named Seneca. And he knows more about chocolate than anybody in the world. So we started talking, and we were like, it would be kind of cool to create like a wine shop for chocolate. And Berkeley seems like the perfect place to do that. And at that point, I'd spent so much time either on a plane or in front of a computer that I was like, it'd be really nice to do something that is in the community, that's not virtual.
Yeah.
So that was the original plan. And I was like, okay, I'll help design. Let me get back to my art roots. I'll help design the stores, or the store, or it's just going to be one. And I'll help with the business plan, but I'm not running this thing on a day-to-day basis, because that's I'm done. I need a break. And so, there were some younger people than I that were involved, and one of them wanted to have she was like, let's bake everything. I was like, oh, okay. So it started growing, and it was like, well, we have to do drinks. I was like, okay. So it started to evolve. We've got the whole espresso coffee thing going. We've got the whole bakery thing going. We've got the whole wine store for chocolate thing going. And that was kind of going to be it. And it was I wanted it to feel like it had always been there. So it felt kind of like an old log cabin. And Matt, you were at the original one. And it did feel like it'd been there a long time.
It really did. It was such a magical place, and I feel like you get a little snapshot of Penny's artistic sensibility behind her, but it just had like a very cozy, well designed feel. So totally had that experience.
Yeah, we wanted you to feel like even I think we made the floor so that when you walked in from the sidewalk, I wanted it to have that old grocery store wooden floor sound, so you feel like you kind of step back in time a little bit.
It sounds like
anyway,
the anti-corporate, just like the anti-chain store.
Yeah.
And even, there's a lot of coffee shops that aren't necessarily big corporations or chains that are just like kind of hard surface.
Very glossy.
Not a place where you want to spend time. This sounds like the opposite.
Spend time.
Yeah.
It was which was a bit of a problem because you did have people that would
Spend time.
spend time, like way too much time. Actually, one of our beloved guests who would come when he seemed to be filming a lot in our area was Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he
Oh,
used to come and sit there for hours, you know, um,
sure.
doing his whatever he was doing there. We actually had a drink that we kind of named after him. It was a espresso, iced triple espresso
Uh,
was what it was. And we
Nice.
called it the PS.
the other thing, just quickly
PSH.
to
Yeah,
paint a
PSH.
picture of Bittersweet, the smells in this place were just insane. It smelled so good. It was just like chocolate, baked goods. You know, it had Bittersweet had an amazing array, an amazing array of baked goods, which probably led to some financial troubles for the cafe because there's just so much complexity.
There's
Um,
so much complexity. Oh my God.
Coffee, but it was just it smelled so good in there. And just like a quick menu item to call out too, they had a chocolate Thai iced tea that was chocolate with jasmine tea iced. It was on a hot day in the East Bay. It was an incredible drink.
I'm gonna have to tell my wife about this so she can travel through time and space to.
Yeah,
Well, and Matt came in. Well, just one other thing briefly. We worked with Blue Bottle. Blue Bottle coffee
Oh yeah.
at the time was a in a little shed behind a Mexican restaurant, like a few blocks from us, and they roasted their own coffee. So it was the beginning of the whole third wave coffee.
yeah.
So and they did a roast for us called Bittersweet. And it was at the point where we were spending, I think, $9,000 a month or $12,000 a month just with Blue Bottle. You know, we were like, maybe we should start roasting our own coffee. And they were their, you know, their status was changing, evolving over time. And so they sold us their old roasting machine,
Uh-huh.
and we did start roasting our own coffee. Around the same time, Scharfenberger got bought by Hershey's. And Scharfenberger was based in Berkeley. And so we hired Albert Abrams, and Albert had been Scharfenberger's main chocolate maker. And so we brought him on. So he and Seneca started doing our bean to bar chocolate. So we were doing that. So one of the things that you would smell was us roasting the beans, and then we ended up with 5 cafes over time, which was insane because they were and you had 5 different health departments you had to deal with. And
Yeah.
anyway, so the person who never wanted to run the place ended up being the person who ran it with a woman who came in to help Diana McFessel.
I just have a question. Like, so we talked about Ask Jeeves and like being at the creation of something like that ended up scaling and becoming a technology that's familiar to all of us. And then Bittersweet, in some ways, is like the polar opposite. Like it's like hyper local. I remember all the challenges, and you just talked about some of them with staffing, with like just the insanity of trying to create all these different products every day. Like, what did that feel like for you? Like, was that energizing? Was it hard? Like, what was it like being in your shoes at that point?
That was really hard. I mean, we did a book when we were at Ask Jeeves. We did a whole series of children's books, and I remember when we had to get the books to the bookstore, and I was like, God, this is a pain. Moving things is a pain, like real things, because doing something digital was so easy. And then you've got chocolate and it melts, and it's like, wait, what has happened to my life? Everything has a shelf life. And the days in Oakland when it would hit 80, which aren't that many, but when it did, or 85, and you're like, we don't have air conditioning, and we've got, $10,000 worth of inventory here. And,
Yeah.
what do we do about that? And of course, we had all these ideas of not going to be minimum wage and we're not going to, our tips will go to a charity and all. And then you realize, oh my God, I often wanted to do a map for the government. Like, let's show you how much money we make. Let's show you how much
Uh-huh.
profit we make. Let's show you what each department of the, and we're California, thinks that they deserve.
Uh-huh.
And there's beyond nothing left at
Yeah.
the end of it all. And I was like, has anybody ever shown you guys what all of this does to a
Yeah.
small business? It made me almost become a, Republican. But,
Almost.
um, but yeah, so it was, and Matt, you saw it firsthand, it
Yeah.
was just like, but, and I think being in the Oakland store where you spent a lot of time at the downtown Oakland
Yep.
store, or and you'd see what it did for people, just the community. There was such um, people loved it,
Yeah.
and that was, and people loved the drinks. And Matt came in, to help us figure out, was there a way to commercialize the drinks, the chocolate Thai iced tea, the chocolate chai, all of these amazing, the chocolate coconut. Um, and you worked at that for a while, and it
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I think
really challenging.
yeah. So we were looking at whether we could bottle those products and sell them at retail. And at the end of the day, we tried like taking what they made, the magic that they made in the cafe, and putting it into a packaged product, which requires processing and all that stuff. And then we also looked at like the financial reality of it. And I actually think we made the right decision not to do that.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think that like the quality of the drinks went way down when you put it in a bottle. And I think that's something that like really um, rings true for me with food, is like obviously packaged food isn't going to go away. Like a lot of people rely on it,
Hmm.
and it's just not gonna go away. But I think like there's magic to food that you can create in person, and I think that
In person.
you like at a smaller scale, right? And I think that
Yeah.
you really created that with Bittersweet. We had a conversation in our last episode with Rahul Kapkar, who's a chef in LA, a ramen chef in LA,
Hmm.
and he's just so worn out from the reality of running these businesses. But he's been making the same, vegan ramen for 10 years in Grand
Hmm.
Central Market in LA.
Yeah.
And it's like phenomenal ramen, but you can see what the hospitality business does to you. It's just like, it's a tough, really tough business. And the other piece that I want to bring up is like, so I worked at the back of Bittersweet, and then also in the back of David Edwards' restaurant, when Penny and I together were at Sensory Cloud in Cambridge. And the people that work in the hospitality space, and I said this in the episode with Rahul, work so hard. There's some amazing, amazing people in that space, who put up with so much and who don't get
Oh
paid
my
enough.
gosh. Yep.
And I'm so glad to have had that experience. And I guess I'm wondering, Penny, like before we switch gears to kind of your next chapters, like, is there anything from the experience of running Bittersweet that still informs how you build companies and how you lead?
That's a really good question. And I think um, and you saw this, the passion that people have for food
Yeah.
um, is unmatched almost. I mean, you've been to the fancy food show.
Yep.
I think, no, it has a different name, but I'm always just blown away. But people just are so passionate about, what it is that they do, and what it is that the flavors they've managed to get, and all of that. And it's so important. And I think passion, I used to say this about Jeeves, nobody has to pay me to do this. I would do this for free, and so I think the passion piece is so important. But in the food world, you really see people that care so much about what it is that they do, so much about the quality, and they get paid so little.
Mhm.
But it is the passion, I think, that carries them forward. So you could call that mission, but I'm not sure it's not necessarily mission based.
It's like a
But it's just
purpose. It's more of
it's
a
a
purpose,
purpose, yeah.
right? Like of
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
purpose and a
yeah,
love, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and that drives them.
yeah,
And I think that's been true, you know, I know it's true with what we do right now. That really was brought home to me because yes, it's one thing when somebody's being paid, over $100,000 for what they do. It's another thing when they're
yeah.
being paid $15 an hour for what they do. So,
Which I, just saw updated figures on what the poverty line could be, and it's now, $130,000 for a family of four. So the creation of a space like what it sounds like the Bittersweet Cafe is, uh, almost to me rings of like a public good. Like it's something that
Yeah.
people
mhm.
appreciate so much. There could be a realignment, sort of like an economic realignment that I don't know exactly all the forms it would take, but that would more support. I mean, small business is often the object of a lot of people's support and admiration, but just um, something that would more encourage and support s- spaces that are special and valued by a community. And even like the word utility also comes to my mind. Like, Ask Jeeves is also like a lot of what the internet is and what these you know services are more like it's just like a utility.
Yeah.
It's the tubes, it's the mail, it's
Mhm.
the it's the phone,
It's the
it's the
menstrual
whatever.
pads.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's go to that. Let's go
I
to
mean,
that. I mean, that's
I think we should go there. I completely agree, Pat, with where your head is going with this. And I think as somebody that works from home most of the time, I often wish that there was a place, in the neighborhood that I live in that I could go sit at and do work at comfortably because everything is, it's the real estate is so expensive. The
Mhm.
spaces are so small and there's nowhere, outside of the house to like really be in a community. And I think it's just such an interesting, like knowing that a lot of workforces have shifted to hybrid or fully remote situations. Like there's a ton of real estate open. So it's just like a weird moment that we're in.
One thing we would joke about, but not really. I mean, I was kind of half serious. Like, what if we claimed ourselves to be a nonprofit? I mean,
Yeah.
because you're right. The whole public good thing is like, as I sometimes thought about that. Like, what
Yeah.
would that look like?
Yeah.
Or is that even done?
right.
Could it
Yeah.
be
That's
done?
a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
So I guess while we're on the topic of kind of uh, more utilitarian technologies and things. Like I'm curious if you could tell us about Egal and what you're doing with that. I know you're the CEO.
Sure. So, well, Matt and I worked at a company together called Sensory Cloud, and Matt was the COO there. And while there, I met a person named Tom Devlin, and Tom was our inventor, in-house inventor at Sensory Cloud, and had gone to MIT. So we were in Cambridge at the time. We had moved east at this point, and my husband and I, during the time at Sensory Cloud, had bought a farm down in Massachusetts, on the coast in Massachusetts. And so Tom turned to me one day, and he said, "Hey, I've invented this product. I filed a patent for it, and I was like, okay, what's this?" And he said, it's period pads on a roll. And I was so puzzled. I was like, what? Why has Tom, invented this product? It was really confusing. At first I thought I'd misheard him. I was like, what are these pads for? And it was like period pads. And so then he explained to me that his wife, Stephanie, wrote for the Boston Globe, and which I knew, and that she had written an article about period poverty. And in it, an activist had said, period products should be as ubiquitous as toilet paper. And Tom told me, he was like, when I read that article, read that line, I was like, I wonder if anybody's tried to make a period product that was like toilet paper. And so I was like, okay. And so he showed me the patent or the design of it. And so I was like, okay. And kind of went away, kind of forgot about it, And then a few months later, he contacted me and he said, hey, these mandates, there's mandates in certain states, California and New York, like maybe 10 states at the time, maybe even fewer than that, had passed laws saying that free period products had to be available in schools. And he said, these mandates are going to start to go into effect soon. So why don't we start this company? And I want you to be the CEO. And we had just finished raising money for Sensory Cloud. So he'd seen me do that. And so I thought, well, all right. Seems like an interesting idea, and I could do it from home. I wouldn't have to commute to Cambridge. Yeah, it'd be an interesting thing to do. And I wasn't really sure it was going to have legs. I really wasn't. But the more I started thinking about it, and the more I talked to people, particularly young people, about it, they were like, oh my God. So in a way, the energy came from talking to younger people, and for me, in this case, in the space of, we thought initially, that schools were going to be what we focused on, and the U.S. was going to be what we focused on. And it's been interesting that, yes, schools are still what we are involved with, but airports, Denver Airport called us one day. We met them at a conference, and they wanted something for their employees. And so we have this program where we'll do a pilot for 3 months. This was at that time. And so we said, we'll do a 3-month pilot, and there's a QR code on the dispenser, and you can get the feedback from your employees. And then, if the feedback is X, would you expand? And they were like, yes. So, so that was the plan. After 2 weeks, Denver calls us and they're like, we had no idea this was so needed. This is an oversight on our part. And if you've been to Denver, you know how far away it is from everything.
It's very far away, and there's the corridors are very long too. Unrelatedly, but
yeah, no, but so you can imagine, if you're an employee and you get your period and you don't have anything, what are you going to do? And so Denver said, we had no idea this was an issue. And they said, we think we need to try this for the actual travelers. So again, we were like, okay, we'll do a 3-month pilot and do the QR code, get the feedback. Same thing. 2 weeks later, they're like, we had no idea that this was such an issue. We'd like to move this, to expand throughout Concourse B, which is their busiest concourse, and now it's throughout all of the airports, all of the concourses at Denver.
Fantastic.
But it's a kind of an interesting thing. A lot of facility managers are men. A lot of people making these types of decisions are men.
Right.
They have no idea the MacGyvering that women have to go through.
Never considered it before. Had no idea it was a problem or a need.
It was an issue. Yeah.
Goodness.
But I think it's also like, yes, that's true about men. I also think women have put up with it for so long that there's no expectation that there could be a new sort of source of support.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so right. And well, first of all, it's not something even, women like talking about very much.
Yeah.
Younger ones may, but it's hard. And what I really noticed when I started doing this, people my age were kind of like, why are you doing this? And I still encounter that all the time because they're like, this is your responsibility. You bring it with you. I think the fact that it looks exactly like toilet paper really brings the fact home. You don't have to talk about periods. You don't have to talk about menstruation. It's just like, it's just another bodily function.
Yeah.
Deal with it
Yeah.
in the same way that the
Well,
same reason we have toilet paper, the same reason.
It's there when you need it, in the place you need
Exactly.
it. Like, yeah.
I just
Yeah.
imagine like, when there isn't toilet paper, it's like
It's no
not,
fun.
it's not a good situation,
It's
right?
stressful, right?
Yeah.
And so it
Well,
just
you should have
so
brought
good.
your toilet paper with you,
Use my
Matt. You
toilet paper.
yeah.
Exactly. No, and what's so funny is the minute I would say we don't carry around, to people my age, and they're like, "Oh, I actually never thought of it that way. Like I
Okay.
never thought of it as just another bodily function that should be taken care of,
Yeah.
when you're away from home." And then, certain facilities managers would be like, "Well, we have these boxes, they're out by the sink." And we're like, "Yeah, well, first of all, that's not where you need it."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, you can get it on your way in." You're like, "But you don't know you need it." And they're like, "You don't?" So there's a lot of education around that. And then it's like, well, and has anybody actually refilled that thing in 10 years? Or does it require a coin? Or they're always jammed?
Yeah. These
so-
are expired.
Yeah. So Penny,
Yeah.
this feels like one of those situations where this is like such a basic human need for a huge, huge portion of the population. And also like there's like this, people have been putting up with not having this forever. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering like what is that, what is the biggest blocker right now to you guys having this available in every public restroom?
It is just getting the decision makers, getting to the right decision makers, and getting them to realize that it's necessary. Denver was amazing, did it so quickly. The NHS has started to realize, in the UK, yeah, we need this for our nurses. It really makes our nurses work better. At the NHS, when we go to the NHS conferences, they've been amazing and allowed us to put our product in the bathrooms of the conference center so people actually see it. Because when people see it, they're like, duh, this makes so much sense. The Association of Luxury Suite Directors, ALSD, has we've been they're for stadiums and stuff like that. So they've been really promoting us and allowing us to kind of be where we need to be at conferences. And we've gone into Mercedes-Benz. They wanted to be the first NFL stadium in Atlanta to, have our product because, the NFL is trying to get female fans, and this is a easy, inexpensive way to do it.
Yeah.
You should probably just open more bathrooms while they're at it. They could.
That's Mercedes has a ton. They have 1,000, I think, for women versus, anyway, but so it is finding that person that's like, that can be your champion, and then you realize people are super busy. We're doing a pilot at Heathrow. I think our dispenser sat at Heathrow for 6 months before they actually got installed. So that oftentimes that is the challenge, and we sell through distributors. So the traditional way. But one thing we've realized, when they're selling toilet paper or paper towels, everybody knows what that is. And it's easy for them. They don't know how to sell our product. So we have to do it alongside of them.
Yeah.
And some distributors are reluctant because they're like, wait, are you going to take our account away from us? We're like, no. We're here to help you. We're here to make that happen. But that's another group of people that we have to convince that we're there to help, not steal the business from them.
It seems like once it's in place, you've got a lot of proof of concept.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there's that whole thing, like now that people find us in Denver, they make TikTok videos about me. It's crazy. Well, the way people feel respected, and seen when they find the product is amazing. And it's why theft and misuse is really low. And facilities managers are always super surprised by that because they're
Yeah.
like, this isn't, nothing's happening to this. And it's like, yeah, because you actually are taking care of people. They feel respected. They're not going to misuse it as a
Right.
result of that. You know,
Right. So, I know we're coming up on time here, and I just, Penny, this has been a really amazing, far-ranging conversation, which I just really admire you and the way that you have been open to so many different experiences in your life. I'm just wondering, like, when going through all this, like, what are you feeling as you share all this with us? Like, how does it make you feel?
tired. No.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I know. I mean, I don't mean, I mean, in a good way. I mean, it is funny. You know, oftentimes you're just looking forward, like, what do I need to do today? And
Yeah.
it is, thank you for having the opportunity to kind of look back at it. Um, and, you know, this is an interesting thing. I'll say this. After Bittersweet, I was in the Bay Area and I went to, breakfast with the former CEO of AskJeeves, a different one than the one I had
Yeah.
brought in. And I said, hey, I really am interested in getting back into tech or back into work, outside of the food business.
Uh-huh.
And he said, oh, no, that ship has sailed. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're too old.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, at the time, I think I was 57 or 58. And I remember just leaving that breakfast so discouraged,
Uh-huh.
and, but, and then I came east, and it was interesting how the East Coast was far more open than California was at the time to someone that was older. And I think that what I will say is, you do learn so much from all of these different experiences. And, one thing I will say about Egal is most of us are over, not most of us, half of us are over 50 and the
Uh-huh.
others are younger. Of course you need the younger people and they have the experience and the energy and different approaches to things. But having older people is also really helpful in terms of having had all of these experiences. I mean, all the experiences that Tom has had in manufacturing
Mhm.
are so helpful. And, it wouldn't, if he weren't 60 years old, he wouldn't have had all of those
Right.
experiences. And so I think that that's something that I've also really been grateful for the opportunity to keep going,
Mhm.
after California.
I love that, and I also have really enjoyed working on multi-generational teams. Like, I think that
Hmm.
like is a really nice, and also just like even in the friends that we keep, we like to have
Yes.
we like to have a range of different friends. Like, it's just a
Yeah.
nice, it makes your life richer. Um, and also, like, I think what you said earlier in this conversation around, you know, the nature of being at a frontier, and that there aren't really those feelings of imposter syndrome or judgment in yourself and other people, like that CEO of AskJeeves said to you. I feel like is something that happens after the first initial founders go away. It's something that people who aren't actually creating new things think. um, and I think that when you are creating new things, anybody is welcome because
That's a
ideas
really
come
good
from
point.
everywhere.
Mm.
And it's just a really wonderful space to be in. And I think Penny, like, just as like a thank you to you, like, I feel like you've helped me see that space, and I really appreciate that. And I hope other people who are listening to this conversation hear about those opportunities in that space, because I think there's so much judgment that people put on themselves of like, oh, I can't do this or that. Like, that's not true. Like, you can do anything. And it's just like about like trying, and putting yourself there, and because you're probably going to see it slightly different than other people. And so I hope people hear that message and what Penny's saying and feel empowered by it, because I think it's pretty exciting.
That's a great way to kind of encapsulate it, Matt.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this with us, and yeah, good luck with Egal. If people want to like follow along we get with Egal and support what you're doing, like how can they do that?
So, Instagram is a great place, or LinkedIn. Pads on a Roll is our Instagram handle. And you either follow me on LinkedIn or Egal Pads on LinkedIn, and Pads on a Roll on TikTok now.
Oh,
We
cool.
only have 61 followers, but we just started there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time again.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt and Pat. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, I every time I talk to Penny, I remember how much she's done in her life. It's amazing.
What am I doing? What am I doing with my life, Matt? I'm doing nothing. I'm laying on the ground.
What did you think, Pat?
I mean, we could have easily done a proper bro 4-hour episode and still not gotten to everything.
Yeah.
I think I used the word talent at some point, but she just seems to have an ability to identify her abilities and figure out where they fit in whatever situation it is.
Yeah, and I think it's even like more organic than that. And it's almost like painterly in a way. Like
Yeah.
I loved her description of like starting a painting, and if you know exactly where it's going, it's gonna suck. But if you kind of let it go, it is more organic and, ends up being more beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, there's almost like a
Yeah.
spiritual element to that.
Yeah.
Just like sort of being in tune, letting things flow through you. I was going to use the word vessel. It's like you're just being a vessel for, and like you don't have to be religious per se, but just like rather than trying to force something, just like trying to. It's sort of like the scene of in Princess Bride when Inigo is like, "I need you to guide my sword, father." And then like it seems like he just ran into a tree and it was bullshit, but then like he leans on the tree and then that tree hits the secret knot and it opens the door to the dungeon. It's like, yeah, just
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I feel inspired by that conversation, and I think like I want young people to hear it, because I feel, and I don't know whether it's as much an issue with Gen Z as it was with our generation. Like, I think the amount of pressure that millennials put on themselves to like define themselves, define their careers, define what they are and aren't, like it was a lot. And I don't know if I think Gen Z is a little bit more chill about it, but I feel like for a millennial audience, it's a helpful reminder.
To all you millennialsters, middlesters out there.
Yeah. Do you
I
agree with
mean,
that?
generation wise,
Yeah.
generationally
Yeah.
an analysis. I mean, I'll believe you. I don't have any real counter argument to
Yeah.
it to that. I mean, I feel like the other thing that I don't, um, I think she's totally right that that there are always opportunities, and it's just like how do you and there are opportunities and events around you always that you can't control, that you need to identify where the
Uh-huh.
opportunities are.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that there's some sort of like equal playing field of everybody has the same opportunities. Like if
No.
you know,
Elves.
you're
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, they build on themselves. Yes, that's another dimension of it is like you open one door that opens many other doors, and it's just it's just sort of like any skill where like at first it's going to seem like you're stuck, and then it's
Yeah.
like then like you learn to do whatever thing, you learn to play a C chord on the piano and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
well what other chord can I play, just
Yeah.
like it's just the keeping of the momentum of like what else can this lead to, and
Yeah.
the changing course. I mean, the changing of courses for her is just like, I know this is all condensed and it was over the course of her life and years and decades, but it seems like a breakneck pace of course changing to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need to normalize the fact that, like, for instance, I interacted with Penny, and I know I would say this even with her on the call. Like, when she was at Bittersweet dealing with like the headaches of running a multi-location chocolate shop, like it was tough. So like there's like a lot of days that are like, you know.
Sure.
But I think then the overall arc, with a willingness to put up with the down days, and and also to like intuitively navigate, and curiously navigate life, like you end up with an amazing array of things that she's done, which is really cool. And I think it's interesting that she made the point about Bay Area versus East Coast, and like the fact that I agree with her. Like, I think the East Coast is from a workforce perspective, is a more open place to older, employees and older team members.
That's
Um,
interesting. I wouldn't have,
yeah, I've definitely experienced that.
huh.
But and then the Bay Area. I mean, the Bay Area is a weird, like especially within tech, like it's a highly ageist.
Well, and I think she, tell me if you agree or disagree. Like she was in the tech space when it was more of like a nascent,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
energetic, like
Yeah.
now it's sort of like tech is kind of the evil empire that's like not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's
Well, I mean, I
it,
think like the tech is big, and there are pieces of tech like AI and like that are more frontiery. Um,
right.
but I guess the other piece of what I wanted to highlight was, like, I think she um she's brought like I think the creative, open to possibilities, the more woo woo side does not feel East Coast to me. It feels more Bay Area,
That
like
is Bay
traditional
Area.
Bay Area.
Yeah.
And not like tech VC Bay Area, but like, Oakland hippie, woo woo.
Sure.
And I think that that's a really wonderful thing, and like something that I think Heejin and I really feel lucky. Like, Heejin, when we were out there, decided that she was really interested in animation and visual effects, and was able to, even though she was kind of late, she was able to like go to school for it and get a job at doing production at a famous animation studio. And those opportunities, like, it's not, in Boston, sometimes I'm like, people are like, oh, do you have a PhD,
Hmm.
in X, Y, or Z? And it's just like, it's not the ivory tower kind of thinking. So it's
Hmm.
just cool to see the hybrid of those two uh, environments sort of working for Penny, where like she kind of grew up in the Bay Area and that way of thinking, and now is bringing it to kind of a multi-generational workforce in the East Coast.
Yeah. The other way I was going to characterize, listen to her talk about her personal story, it was just sort of like a more hands-on or active sort of a Forrest Gump
Mm.
story, where it's like, Forrest Gump is like, there's the feather, it's kind of drifting to here and to here, and he
Yeah.
touches on all these famous
Yep.
events and meets all these amazing people. And it's sort of like she has had a similarly wide-ranging series of experiences that touches on all these like touchstones of our recent
Yeah.
history,
Yeah.
I mean, she's very smart, and just like has made it happen more, like has
Mhm.
got, more than she's like chanced upon things. Like she's certainly had good fortune with
Yeah.
the people she's met and the chances the opportunity she's had, but like she's been had more agency. She's been an
Yeah.
agent of Agent Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to like look at and think about.
yeah.
That was fun. I guess what's on your mind? Like, what's we're at December 4th. Like, what's going on for the rest of the year for you?
I mean, happy Thanksgiving belatedly to you.
Happy belated Thanksgiving.
I, as you noted at the top, was away. I was basically away for all of November
Uh-huh.
on tour, and then we were in North Carolina with Mary's family and her friends
Uh-huh.
in different places in North Carolina. And like now, so now I'm back for the first time in a month, and I'm excited to get back to just doing laundry straight for the next month or so. No,
I did a tremendous amount of laundry yesterday. It was
really satisfying.
it is satisfying. So many options for clothes now.
Yeah. That's where all my socks went. No, just getting back to just so many perma to-do list items. We have an album that we're still trying to finish up for the band, and we're going to be working with the mixer. I have my own music that I'm always trying to be working on. I'm always happy to be doing the show and interviewing amazing people with you. Have started working on a very, very early stages, working on a musical with my brother-in-law, who's a fantastic
Very cool.
actor and improviser, about the story of Gregor McGregor. I don't know if you know Gregor
Cousin of
McGregor,
mine.
but he perpetrated what some call the most audacious fraud in history. So, stay tuned for more news about that.
I'm not actually, for listeners, I'm not actually related to him. I just thought with all the Gregors that
I think, I mean, are you of the clan Gregor? That's where he's from.
But probably. I have to I haven't paid my ancestry.com subscription.
The dues.
What
about you?
Do you guys do I mean, big news on my front is that I finished my coaching program at Brown University, which is a huge victory, and I'm really happy about that. It was a great experience. It was challenging, and I'm excited to keep building my coaching practice. I'm planning to do that for ongoing on the side as sort of part of what I do. And I'm also planning next year. I'm hoping to do. They have a team coaching program where you learn to coach teams, and I think that could be a really fun thing for me. So I'm probably gonna try to do that as well. And yeah, the podcast I'm thrilled with, and continuing to build that. And it's obviously a very exciting time of year with Christmas around the corner. Will is super excited about Santa and Christmas happening, and advent calendars. Heejin made a really creative advent calendar for him
She made one. Ooh.
Well, we have a vessel, an advent calendar vessel, and then they're doors, and you can put things in them. So she's made some little clay figurines for him. There's chocolates and other doors. There's Will, if you're listening, we're not going to tell you what's in the rest of the doors. You'll have to wait and find out.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and so it's fun. I like shopping for gifts for family. It's fun to find fun gifts. One cool shout out that I'll give in this episode is that I have a friend named Christina who started a company called Anu, ANU. And what she's done is she's taken old cashmere sweaters, upcycled the cashmere sweaters and made neck warmers with them. And
Cool.
so, and they're all one of a kind because they come from sweaters. You can buy them on her website.
And
And
it's a good gift idea.
yeah, it's a great gift idea. I have one that I wore this morning taking Willie to school. And she's a big believer, obviously, in, upcycling old materials, but also in the power of like cashmere as a active wear versus like the more synthetic, like plastic based stuff that you might buy at some of the bigger athleisure companies now. And I think that's really cool, like for using cashmere for sports and stuff, which is kind of a cool idea. So check out Anu. It's nice. It's fun to think about ways to like support new businesses with Christmas shopping versus the big giants.
I like how she's positioned the Anu neck warmers on rocks to stand in for the necks. It's very organic looking.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Well, we've got some more fun episodes coming up. Looking forward to keeping on the trail.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. All right. See you, Pat.
See you, Matt. Great work.
Be well.
You too.
Trail Map is hosted by Matt Gregory and Patrick Direwolf. Editing and production by Matt Gregory. Music by Patrick Direwolf. Animation direction by Hati Nguyen and Nana Teja Paibel.